And I asked Brandi to come out because, well, I know what we think. So I thought it was important to bring someone out from a different part of the country and hear what they think. And I think Brandi is uniquely qualified to do that because, as they say in the trades, she's lived a life. You know, she wasn't born to be a mental health professional. It's what happened to her as she went through life. And her life has been more than interesting. She served our country for 6 years in the Navy and is a proud veteran. While in the Navy, she was stationed in Italy, so speaks Italian. I told her that would serve her very well in North Jersey, that she was in the right place. She also hikes the Appalachian Trail on a regular basis. She is a blues drummer, a drummer in a blues band. She's a former truck driver, and she's the only healthcare executive I've ever met that knows how to roast a full hog. With no further ado, my good friend, Brandi Christiansen.
Wow, what an introduction. I don't regularly hike the Appalachian Trail, Bob. I live in transparency. It was my first hike. And I'm going back to complete the 150 miles that I owe next year. So the rest of it's mostly true. Bob's been asking me to come and speak for, I think, 6 or 7 years now. And every year I say, okay, Bob, because I don't think he really means it. And last year at National, he brought it up again, and I said, Bob, I'm not a public speaker. Dude, I accidentally ventured onto this path, and what makes you think I'd be a good speaker? And he said, well, I just have a knack. I said, Bob, what if I lay an egg? He said, then you lay an egg. So, you know, if I do lay an egg, it's Bob's fault. My therapist told me I should do that one. So I am a little nervous. I thought I'd start off with a joke. He assured me that there would be friends here, and I found that to be true. I also have friends that are watching me live stream. Thanks to Bobby, shared that. So my partner's in Indiana, CEO of the YWCA, doing great work out there. I know a good team when I see one, and you are all a good team. I know that because I have one. They're also watching. Hi, guys. Thank you. I can do this because of you. And I have some Navy buddies watching because I had to get a pep talk last night. So I did change my mind. So in the program, it's a little bit different. But I decided to talk about what I'm an expert in, and that's my life. And then kind of I'm leaning into proficiency in my leadership. So I've entitled this, Driving a Supportive Work Environment, Lessons from a Life of Healing and Leadership. And I do have notes, so that's my crutch. We're gonna deal with it. All right, so on a cold spring day in 2004, a series of events and decisions changed my life forever. I was driving a semi-truck for a family-owned business in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I wanna give them a shout out, Westside Transport, they're awesome. I was in a really bad place. I was in yet another bad relationship causing a lot of turmoil and pain. That's how I processed my trauma. And though my partner wasn't with me that day, I carried that anger and humiliation of the abuse I'd been experiencing. I was in the ops center, I was picking up a load, and I was contacted by a safety department. A couple of weeks prior, I had damaged a trailer door in an incident with some wind, and I was required to take a 4-hour safety class. And it was really an inconvenience for me. I had already worked all morning, and I would then have to drive all night. So I built myself up into quite a temper tantrum and ended up taking it to HR, and ultimately that mandatory training was set aside for another day. And you know, that should have been a victory, but I was in the smoking lounge because where's my new friend? Because I was a heavy smoker, as a lot of people with trauma are, and I was kind of mulling in that victory, and I was feeling it, you know, not in a good way. And I began to realize in my consciousness, I'm walking back to my truck and I go to step up into it. Has anyone ever climbed into a big rig? It's like a flow that you get into. You just kind of, it's a swing, you pull yourself up. I sort of sat there suspended for a while in mid, I'll never forget that. So it's a moment frozen in time for me. And I realized, I felt the crushing burden of the anger that was inside me. And I knew that that I couldn't go on any longer like that. I knew that if I didn't do something right now, that I was probably going to kill myself or someone else. Not intentionally, but I wasn't well. I wasn't sleeping. I was distracted with my pain. I was exhausted from the anger, and I needed help, and I knew it. I went right back in. I turned around to the lady who had just gotten me off of the mandatory training, and I told her I think I need to go into a mental hospital. And she sat down and she talked to me, trauma informed, like we talked it out. And she knew of a therapist she thought I would click with, and she worked with my dispatcher. And if anyone's familiar with the trucking industry, especially in the 90s, I mean, these people made a decision I was going to get back every 2 weeks so that I could attend therapy. This is what a supportive work environment looks like. And it happened well before mental health was the topic of Frontline News, before workplace training centered on trauma-informed policies, and I was fortunate, I know this. And I really need to reiterate the privilege and the fortune that frame my outcome, because not everybody, even in today's world, gets it. So I'm gonna kind of walk through those, if that's okay. I worked for a company that had a person with a mental health background. As an HR person, I worked with a dispatcher that put my personal well-being above productivity. And I gotta give a shout out to the man. Mike Robertson made sure he did me a solid. For an entire year, I only missed one appointment, and he was sick about that. I had an HR director, and I had a therapist with whom I could relate. They weren't exactly like me, but we had shared social references and norms, and I was able to connect with my provider. Representation matters. And though I had insurance, the therapist didn't accept it, as many don't in the private sector, because it's too much of a hassle and parity, blah, blah, blah. We talk about this all the time. But she was able to provide me a sliding scale, which was affordable for a multi-year relationship, and it made me really able to focus and commit upon the work that I had to do, and I had some work to do. And then finally, I am blessed with a curiosity, drive, and a work ethic that allowed me to push through when things got hard. And they did get hard. They got very hard. In fact, if I had known how hard it was going to be, I doubt I would have had the courage to begin. And I try not to tell people who come into my office that part, because I really want them to get help. But, even on the roughest days, and I can clearly remember some of the roughest days. I remember driving through the Pennsylvania Turnpike and having a memory of a dream, and just the realization, just opening up that door and just shaking and being very afraid, and having to pull over and talk to my therapist. I remember, I couldn't eat for a long time because the eating disorder that I struggled with as a 15-year-old returned to me with a vengeance. And then I even remember spending the night underneath a kitchen table at a friend's house, waiting for daylight, for other people to wake up so I wouldn't be alone, because every single time I closed my eyes, I saw things that I'd hidden and I just couldn't process. So even during those really tough times, though, I was acutely aware that for the first time in my life, I was driving the bus. I was not a helpless passenger of my own life. I examined who I was, what I believed, where I was going, brick by brick, and I found them to be completely separate from reality. Cultural programming, truths that are told to you over and over again. I learned to use my senses to determine reality for me, and I recharted my course again and again, stop by stop, until I couldn't even recognize myself anymore. So, if it's cool with you, I'm going to take you along with me on a few of those major turning points in my personal and professional life, like a few bus stops, if you will, that inform my approach to building and leading a supportive work environment. Okay? Is that cool? And can we make predictions for the future? So, as I said, I was really getting in my own spiritual journey, and I was compelled to throw in with folks that were interested in collective evolution. I've always been a huge team of fans, although I hearken from Indiana. I'm originally from Green Bay, Wisconsin, so go Pack go. I'm really sorry about Aaron Rodgers. From the depths of my heart. I could think of no team that needed uplifting and transformation more than human beings. And with our ability to reason, our awareness of our own mortality, ability to problem solve and create solutions, it seemed really important that we all shake off the shackles of the programming that we, needed to examine it and lift up our brothers and sisters in knowledge and spirit to become good stewards of the planet we've been gifted. And I found myself studying Native American totemology, which continues to impact my spiritual journey every day and informs my actions and reactions to the material world. So that's bus stop 1. Bus stop 2, I moved to Kokomo, Indiana. You guys heard the song, everybody knows a little place called Kokomo. I doubt they were talking about Kokomo, Indiana. But great place, blue collar, great people. I got married and I moved there in 2009 after graduating summa cum laude from the University of Iowa. Thank you. And I just got back to nature. I love nature. I was homesteading in my yard. I was growing and foraging at almost 1/4% of my food. I was getting really good at food preservation. I made my own laundry detergent, my own soap, all that stuff. I was a hippy dippy. And I was substitute teaching, which I still think was the hardest thing I've ever done and really lent itself to my success, because I don't think we ever get beyond 4th and 5th grade emotionally, but you get the picture. I had time to immerse myself in holistic healing. I was privileged in who I married, so I could live on $8.65 an hour, and I could allocate my time. And in 2011, I spent 11 days in a Vipassana meditation course in Pecatonia, Illinois, and I learned how to train my body and mind to bring equanimity to my suffering and pleasure. I've done 4 more since then. It's like boot camp for meditation, so it's kind of hard. But things were going good. I had friends. My life was pretty simple. I was able to heal even another layer deep, and I wasn't paying much attention to the rest of the world. I kept a really good relationship with my sister Kelly. She was kind of forging a similar path, but she didn't believe in therapy, didn't want to talk about family trauma, things like that. She was doing massage therapy, and that stigma that we face in our family still impacts our path to this day. So we're on bus stop 3. We're almost there, folks, I promise. I hope I'm not boring you too bad. Bus stop 3 is the Appalachian Trail. We already talked about it. But in 2012, I hiked the Appalachian Trail with my then wife and 14 other individuals that we kind of picked up along the way. Because if you know anything about it, it starts in Georgia, and it's like a traveling circus. It's pretty cool. when I finish, it's not gonna be like that, but I don't think. But we call ourselves the Sunshine Gang because we didn't like to hike when it was raining. And that experience is its own speech, but suffice it to say, for me, 6 months and 26 days in the wilderness was the ultimate experience of my life. Carrying everything that you need on your back is a clarifying exercise. It benefits me to this day. And understanding the preciousness of clean water has driven me to other experiences like going to Standing Rock over the Thanksgiving break of 2016 in solidarity with my Native brothers and sisters defending their drinking water from the Dakota Access Pipeline. Another story. On the AT, I learned that it doesn't matter how many mountains you climb, on any given day, you can succumb to what I call the I can'ts. And you just fighting your mental battle going up a mountain, but if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, you will get to the top. And the next day, you may come upon the nastiest looking mountain and you're just skipping to the top. Mood and attitude are everything, and we don't always have control over all of it. I learned on the trail that sometimes I had to be the one to lead others out of darkness and danger. And I learned that I would rather work as a team than to do life alone. I stand every single life experience against the trail. It's the greatest gift I've ever given myself. And if you're one of those people that says that you'd love to do that, but you could never find that kind of time or go take that time away from your life, I say check your priorities and find a way to do it because it is worth it. If it's for you, it's worth it. And that leads me to bus stop 4, the pull of leadership. We joke about it to this day, but I decided to enter the nonprofit workforce. My current partner found me in a coffee shop, kind of reintegrating into society, making sandwiches, and she's like, you should come and make a difference, join a nonprofit. And in 2014, I did apply for and receive a case management position at a place called Bonavista, serving adults with intellectual disabilities. I had just one thing I had to finish before I started. I had done a year as a semi-pro football player at 41 years old, starting right tackle for the Indy Crash. I have a ruined finger and my ribs still pop out if I cough real hard, but we did do that bowl game in Chicago. We beat Seattle, and then the next week I started my new role. I absolutely loved case management. I have a huge advocate heart, and that's an easy population to love. To this day, I'm friends with many of them, and I love to cheer them on. But 6 months later, a director position opened up, and I really surprised myself by applying. I felt pulled to leadership for the first time in my life. So I was shocked. I'm sure everyone else was shocked when I was offered the position. And for a year, I reported directly to my now partner. She was the best boss I ever had. I don't have to say that. But it works well because she's still telling me what to do. But we made a lot of great changes in our time together. We reduced turnover by 40%, got an 18% wage increase for staff, and implemented an on-site therapy program for clients to remove barriers and connect teams to make sure we're all on the same page. And we were super proud of our accomplishment, but the agency was undergoing restructuring and felt increasingly toxic, and I chose to leave and heal and spent 4 months kayaking scenic rivers in Michigan and Wisconsin and Missouri, again, getting back in nature to heal. But when I returned, I was facing a personal decision. My marriage was failing. I was not employed. I wasn't super worried about that, but that's usually an opening, where am I gonna go next? And I was beginning to hear about the attack of our brothers and sisters in North Dakota. I was conflicted. I was notified of an opening at a local Mental Health America, and I went to Standing Rock with a question in my heart: where does the Great Spirit want me next? After returning to Standing Rock, I was offered the executive director position at Mental Health America. They were of Howard County at the time. They interviewed me. They said, we're in the beginning stages of dissolution. We're an old board. We're a tired board. But it'll be a good resume builder, and you will have about a year. And about 6 months later, we expanded into 3 additional counties. And that leads to bus stop 5, my sister. On February 5th, 2017, like literally 2 months exactly after I started my new position, I received a call from my mom, my sister, who for the better part of my life was my biggest fan, my confidant, my friend, had suffered a non-survivable head injury and was on life support waiting for the family to say goodbye. I was devastated. My sister had never gotten real help. So she began to intentionally drink herself to death. And one of the last conversations I had with her was in a truck cab, and I said, she told me, Brandi, I'm gonna drink myself to death, and there's nothing you or anyone else can do about it. And I didn't know how to handle that conversation. The threats of estrangement, my development director made all the fancy edits, but she would threaten us if we were to ever stage an intervention, and we knew she was right because she had done it in the past. Much like that quarterback who throws the interception, I wish I had that one back. I did become a mental health first aid trainer after that, and I worked with my community to assist people who needed advocacy within the mental health and judicial systems, and I was like shocked at how disconnected and underwhelming those services were for people in mental health crisis and the people that love them. And I mean, just some examples: we go into court, and the families would petition for, and the sympathetic judges would mandate a 30-day inpatient with a stay with the agreement of the clinician, and then the week on call person would release them to the streets, and they'd be arrested and have other traumas. And the system was really bad, and I knew that, but I didn't understand the extent. And so I seriously considered running for the district senate on a mental health platform, and I even assembled a team to help me run a campaign, but instead it led me to bus stop 6. And we're almost done here. Bus stop 6, the move to Lafayette. So grieving the loss of my sister had prolonged the inevitability of my impending divorce. And after losing my other best friend, my dog, Mochaccino, and failing at marriage counseling, the call to apply for the CEO position at a nearby MHA seemed like a divine appointment. I interviewed for and was offered the opportunity to serve as the president and CEO of Mental Health America Wabash Valley region, and I thought long and hard about it. I talked to my family and friends, as I do, and I ultimately put my faith in the belief that I could do more to reshape the system internally than I could trying to be a legislator. So I accepted the position the day after filing for divorce, and I'm gonna be honest, I spent the next 3 years questioning whether I made the right decision. As numerous people got off the figurative bus I was driving, in great numbers, to be honest. And then we had a global pandemic right after that, and then it seemed like maybe I had mistaken that call. Yeah, it was a conversation I had with my higher power very often. But I was able to put aside my personal angst and lean into the work. My predecessor had left the organization a robust pilot navigation program, and that's designed to remove barriers for individuals and families seeking clinical care. And she also had left me an application for a new pilot, Let's Talk, which was loosely based on the Friendship Benches, which was an evidence-based movement in Zimbabwe by grandmothers who were sick and tired of the suicide epidemic, fueled by the reality that they had one clinician in the entire country. The project was awarded a grant through the United Way, and I followed my instincts and shifted the program to a peer model. And we offer non-clinical appointments to individuals who may or may not be seeking clinical care, or extra support for those waiting for an appointment, harm reduction and goal setting for those who aren't seeking clinical care today, but hopefully will be plugging in the future. COVID claimed a lot of our education programs. We let go of mental health first aid. We focused on QPR and assist, which are requirements for our internal training for, at the time, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And we'd been asked during COVID to expand our service area. We had a center close. So we went from 2019 to 2020, we doubled our numbers on the crisis line, and that was largely a volunteer crisis line with some paid staff. In 2020, I was asked to testify before the Public Health Committee in support of House Bill 1468, which was a non-funded piece of legislature for future implications to put the Department of Mental Health and Addictions as the controller of any funds for the Crisis Now initiative. And then in 2021, yet another call center was absorbed by the Indiana Children's Bureau, so we went from 4 centers to 2, and we took over 16,000 calls in 2021. So really a quadrupling in less than 2 years. We were busy, we were uncertain what the future would hold. The state was going to determine who was going to be eligible to provide the 988 services, and we were in the middle of a strategic review. And after absorbing my previous territory in January of 2021, we had to determine how we were going to effectively serve our region, given the political landscape and national interest in mental health. To add insult to injury, I don't know if you guys experienced this, but we had fewer qualified applicants than ever before, and most were experiencing their own mental health challenges due to the pandemic. We had high turnover because laborers were participating in the Great Resignation or sampling different agencies. And we're not a large agency, and we didn't have a lot of really good, solid HR practices. So we also lacked confident and motivated people in leadership seats. We were in flux and going into strategic review, but we ultimately decided to trust the process. And this means also kind of trusting myself. Fulfilling our 2019 strategic objectives, we opened 4 offices and regional hubs throughout our territory, focusing on navigation, peer support, education, and crisis intervention via the 988 line and our own local warm lines. We invested in employee benefits for the first time, and we hired a clinical supervisor for our peers and navigators, mandatory peer supervision, game changer. We struck a deal with our Community Mental Health Center to offer unlimited EAP mental health services for all staff and volunteers, and we were awarded a contract with the state then to transition from an NSPL center to a 988 center. We hired qualified leadership and expanded our regional efforts. I was steering the bus, we're back to the bus, towards a type of supportive work environment that I knew it had to be. Things were going well, so why stop there, right? So bus stop 7, last one I promised, the farm. Something deep has been inside of me since the early days of my my therapy, and it sort of reemerged just this last year. A place, I dream of a place where individuals and families can come to heal through the earth, through animal tending, and through confidence-building workshops centered around a farm. We're in rural Indiana. We have to do something because the stigma is so bad. Even people that are experiencing it don't know how to frame it. So this is going to be a hub for our mobile crisis team, a center for community engagement, and ultimately we hope to bridge the gaping void in our region's child therapy landscape. And the farm, we hope, will function as a recovery cafe model in the evenings for individuals and families in recovery, and it will stand as a statement in stigma reduction for a community that resists mental health realities. It will be a pinnacle of transformation for a community to access much-needed mental health and addiction supports. And the really cool thing about it is that our whole board, staff, volunteers, and even the committee members of the Community Foundation in that county are truly excited. It's a product of shared imagining, and for me, it's a commitment to that divine appointment. It's said that when you heal yourself, you heal a part of the world. I believe that with all my heart. I've healed a lot since that day. I stood suspended in the air in 2004. And though I'm now driving more of a proverbial load than a literal one most days, that healing is evidence in the mission and workplace I'm now responsible for. As I close my remarks, I'd like to offer some insight into a few key elements necessary to build a supportive work environment like the one I had in Cedar Rapids and the one I'm continuing to build out in Lafayette. The first is that people cannot give attention to their healing if their basic needs are not being met. First and foremost, we need to be providing folks with an actual living wage, benefits, and flexibility to meet the demands of their lives. And this is something I just want to give a shout. I'm sure this room is totally cool, but in Indiana, it seems like there's a lot of gender expectations for the females to take care of the kids' appointments and things like that. We need to share those roles. Second, there's a real value in seeing oneself reflected in the workplace leadership and support staff. This means we need to be cultivating pipelines for underrepresented demographics in healthcare, including mental health care. Representation matters. Third, access to care is a precursor to wellness, and we must treat it as such. Getting help is already hard enough, and the systems we live among make it even harder. It's our job to help make getting on that path toward healing and wellness a little easier. Which leads me to my fourth and final point. A culture of support must be a driving force for everything we do and build as leaders. If we're to fight the powerful and debilitating stigma that looms over millions of people's paths, we must make support part of our institutions, practices, and part of our culture, generally and especially in the workplace. Lip service is no longer enough. I think you guys are doing a great job of that. I would be thrilled to be number 6 in the nation. Like, I think we can't get out of the 40s. So you guys are doing great with that. I want to thank you for listening with me and walking through this little part of my life with me. I want to thank you for your work, your light. You're making a difference. And I want to say this to my team too. Thank you for letting me be myself, Bob. Never underestimate the power of your journey or the power of a dream. I'm living proof it can happen. Thank you.
How about that? So like Brandi, our young people who go to college, particularly our young people who participate in college athletics, are really extraordinary young people. They've already been successful in academics. They've been successful in sports. So they get to college with a lot of success and with high expectations for themselves. But with those expectations comes a lot of stress and a lot of demands. And as adults, it's important that we're mindful of that. You know, the old joke is there's no crying in baseball, right? I remember that movie. I thought that was hysterical. It was funny. But the fact is, it's not true. You could ask Mickey Mantle after the 1960 World Series, and I still cry once in a while if the Yankees were swept by the Red Sox after they were up 3 games to none. So there is crying in baseball. And in college athletics, there's also anxiety, depression, eating disorders, and substance abuse. And coaches in this day and age have to be aware of that. And Seton Hall is very fortunate because they have a coach, Coach Anthony Bozzella, who not only is a winner, I refer you to his biography, he wins, his team wins. He's not only a winner, but he takes care of his players because he understands that, particularly during the COVID pandemic, where it really rocked him